Okay, now you have rational inequalities where they have a polynomial statement in the numerator and in the denominator, and that's set less than or equal to 0 or a number, so we're going to have to be careful with that. Pretty much you're doing similar things. You figure out first what zeroes out the denominator. So in this case, where x is equal to 2, zeroes out the denominator, and you put that on a number line. And you figure out what zeroes out. So this is the denominator, here's the numerator. Well, x would have to be -5. So where x is equal to -5. And then you just find your intervals to see which one makes the statement true. So I'm going to pick -10, 0, +10, and I'm going to make it easy. So -10 plus 5 would be a negative in the numerator and a negative in the denominator. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Is a positive number less than or equal to 0? False. We're going to try 0. 0 plus 5, that's positive. 0 subtract 2, that's negative. Positive divided by negative is a negative. Is a negative number less than or equal to 0? True. And then for 10, we'll have a positive divided by a positive. Well, obviously that's going to be a positive is less than or equal to 0, so that will be false. So for writing the domain, and remember, solid line, square bracket. Except for when the square bracket would involve an infinity and you can't touch infinity. So because this is the region and it touches both of those values, we have -5, 2, and that is the domain. Okay. This one has already been factored, so where x is equal to +7, where x is equal to -8, where x is equal to +3. So we have -8, we have +3, +7. So I would say -10, 0, 5, 10, and then just do the symbols. So -10, negative would be in the numerator. This would be a negative times a negative. So is a negative number greater than 0? False. And then I'm going to put 0 in. We'll have negative in the numerator, positive times a negative, which ends up being negative. Is a negative divided by negative, which is positive, greater than 0? True. So let's put 5 in there. Negative will be in the numerator. A positive, I should have done that, times a positive. Is a negative divided by a positive? Positive, no, it's negative. Is a negative greater than 0? False. And then when we do +10, I'll do it up here. +10 would be positive up here, would be positive there, would be positive there. Everywhere it's positive, so that would be true. So for this domain, erase all this stuff now. And so take note, that's just, whoops, that's just a greater than symbol. Right there, right? So since it's this interval right here, that would be a hollow dot, that would be a hollow dot, that would be a hollow dot, and then on to infinity is open. So we would have from -8 to +3, open parentheses, that means the same as hollow dot, and then from 7 to +infinity, and both of those have open brackets. All right, come over here. You're going to do the same thing we did just in the previous problem, but you have to factor first. So what zeroes out -4 is +4. What zeroes out 8 is -8. And then -7 And I would still keep it easy on yourself. -10, -7.5, 0, 10, and then you try all those to figure out which one works. Now the other one that I'm going to have you do is a little bit more complex. So we have -x subtract 50 over 3x subtract 6 greater than or equal to 4. Well, we want this side to be 0, so we're going to have to subtract 4. And when we subtract 4, it will have 1 in the denominator, so we're going to have to multiply top and bottom by 3x minus 6. Which is what I did right here. I subtracted the 4, and then I multiplied numerator and denominator by 3x subtract 6. And once you do that, the denominators will now will be the same, so we can put them into one fraction. And so we still have -x subtract 50, subtract 4 times 3x is 12x. We have to subtract again, but 4 times -6 is -24, subtract a negative is adding 24, and then -x and -12x can be combined, and then -50 and +24 can be combined. And when we simplify that, we get -13x subtract 26, 3x subtract 6. Well, these both have a factor. They both have a -13 in common. So that's going to be -13 x plus 2. And down here, these both have a 3 in common, leaving x minus 2. And then look at, we just have +2 is what zeroes out the denominator, -2, and it's actually been simplified quite a bit. So again, -10, 0, +10, plug those in there, and then it makes it pretty easy to figure out where it's true or false. But remember, there's a negative sign out here, so when we put in a -10 here, -10 plus 2, this is negative, but a negative times a negative is a positive. And then down here, this will be a positive times a negative. Positive divided by negative is negative. Is a negative greater than or equal to 0? That would be false. So when we put 0 in there, that's a positive times a negative, so that's a negative divided by, well, 3 times a negative, 0 subtract 2 is a negative. Negative divided by negative is one big positive, which would be greater than or equal to 0. That would be true. And then when we put +10 in there, a negative times a positive is negative. And then a positive times a positive is a positive. Well, a negative divided by positive is a negative. Is a negative greater than or equal to 0? That would be false. So, and that's a solid line right there. So, -2 to +2, that's the domain. All right, that's it for this one.